Hello, this is John T. Rhapsodes Esquire, purveyor of awesome old-school audio stories. I bring you today another spooky tale by Ambrose Bierce called An Inhabitant of Carcosa from 1886. Stay tuned until the end to hear special bonus features. Bierce walked the earth from 1842 until around 1914, when he disappeared in Mexico, possibly killed by Pancho Villa. If you like awesome old-school audio stories from old minds that were once young minds, brought to you free of charge and with a happy and grateful heart, consider while listening to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications to get notice of new stories. Some funny, some spooky, all awesome. Usually at least once a week. These simple acts will help this channel immensely. And now, hear the words of old. An Inhabitant of Carcosa from 1886 by Ambrose Bierce. From the writings of Ali are the following thoughts. For there be many sorts of death, some where the spirit departs and the body remains behind, and some where the body vanishes away along with its spirit. The latter commonly occurs only in solitude, such as God's will, and when no one sees the death. In these cases, we usually say that the man was lost or has gone on a long journey, which indeed he has. In another kind of death, the spirit itself dies while the body is yet alive for many years. Still another type of death sees the spirit die with the body, but after a season, the spirit is raised up again in that place where the body did decay. As I pondered these words of Ali, whom God rest, and questioned their full meaning, I realized I was not sure where I was, until a sudden chill wind struck my face and revived in me a vague sense of my surroundings. I observed with astonishment that everything around me seemed unfamiliar. On every side of me was a tall overgrowth of withered grass, which rustled and whistled in the autumn wind with heaven knows what mysterious and disquieting suggestion. Above the grass stood strangely shaped and somber-colored rocks, which seemed to have an understanding with one another, and to exchange looks of uncomfortable significance, as if they had reared their heads to watch some foreseen event. A few blasted trees here and there appeared as leaders in this malevolent conspiracy of silent expectation. Though I could not see the sun, I felt sure it was the middle of the day, and although I could feel that the air was raw and chill, my knowledge of that fact was rather mental than physical. I had no physical feeling of discomfort. I concluded it was late fall or early winter. Over all the dismal landscape, a canopy of low, lead-colored clouds hung like a visible curse. In all this there were a menace and a portent, a hint of evil, an intimation of doom. Bird, beast, or insect, there was none. The wind sighed in the bare branches of the dead trees, and the gray grass bent to whisper in dread secret to the earth. But no other sound nor motion broke the awful repose of that dismal place. I saw in the withered vegetation a number of weather-worn stones evidently shaped with tools. They were broken covered with moss and half sunken in the earth. Some lay prostrate, some leaned at various angles, none was vertical. They were obviously headstones of graves, though the graves themselves no longer existed as either mounds or depressions. The years had leveled all. Scattered here and there, more massive blocks showed where some pompous tomb or ambitious monument had once flung its feeble defiance at oblivion. So old seemed these relics, these vestiges of vanity and memorials of affection and piety, so battered and worn and stained. So neglected, deserted, forgotten the place, that I could not help thinking myself the discoverer of the burial ground of a prehistoric race of men whose very name was long extinct. While I thought about this strange old place, I had forgotten about myself. But soon I thought, how did I get here? Then I remembered I was ill. I remembered I had been prostrated by a sudden fever, and that my family had told me that in my periods of delirium that I had constantly cried out for liberty and air, and had been held in bed to prevent my escape out of doors. I must have escaped anyway, but to where? I had no idea. Clearly, I was at a considerable distance from the city where I dwelt, the ancient and famous city of Carcosa. I could neither see nor hear signs of human life anywhere around me. No rising smoke, no watchdogs bark, no sounds of cattle, no shouts of children at play, nothing but that dismal burial place with its air of mystery and dread. Maybe I was delirious again from the fever, far away from human help. Or maybe I was still at home and all of this was an illusion. I called aloud the names of my wives and sons, reached out my hands in search of theirs, even as I walked among the crumbling stones and in the withered grass. A noise behind me caused me to turn about. A wild animal, a lynx, was approaching. The thought came to me, if I break down here in the desert, and I fall, this beast will be at my throat. I sprang toward it, shouting. It trotted tranquilly by within a hand's breadth of me, and disappeared behind a rock. A moment later, a man appeared while walking up the hill before me. His whole figure soon came into view against the background of gray cloud. He was half naked, half clad in skins. His hair was unkempt, his beard long and ragged. In one hand he carried a bow and arrow. The other held a blazing torch with a long trail of black smoke. He walked slowly and with caution, as if he feared falling into some open grave concealed by the tall grass. This strange apparition surprised, but did not alarm me. And taking such a course as to intercept him, I met him almost face to face, and I greeted him with the familiar salutation, "God keep you." The man gave no heed to my presence, nor did he stop walking. "Good stranger," I continued, "I am ill and lost. Direct me, I beseech you, to Carcosa." The man broke into a barbarous chant in an unknown tongue, and continued to walk away and disappeared into the distance. An owl on the branch of a nearby decayed tree hooted dismally and was answered by another in the distance. The owl did not look at me, nor seemed at all interested in my presence. Looking upward, I saw through a sudden rift in the clouds the constellations Aldebaran and Hyades. I could see, but apparently could not be seen or heard by others. Under what awful spell did I exist? I seated myself at the root of a great tree, seriously to consider what to do. I certainly existed, yet I recognized a ground of doubt in the conviction. Of fever I had no trace. In fact, I had a sense of exhilaration and vigor altogether unknown to me, a feeling of mental and physical exaltation. My senses seemed all alert. I could feel the air as a ponderous substance. I could hear the silence. A great root of the giant tree, against whose trunk I leaned as I sat, held enclosed in its grasp a slab of stone, a part of which protruded into a recess formed by another root. The stone was thus partly protected from the weather, though greatly decomposed. Its edges were worn round, its corners eaten away, its surface deeply furrowed and scaled. Glittering particles of mica were visible in the earth about it, vestiges of the stone's decomposition. This stone had apparently marked the grave out of which the tree had sprung ages ago. The tree's exacting roots had robbed the grave and made the stone a prisoner. A sudden wind pushed some dry leaves and twigs from the uppermost face of the stone. I saw the wind-worn letters of an inscription and bent to read it. God in heaven! My name in full, the date of my birth, the date of my death. As I sprang to my feet in terror, I noticed the sun was rising in the rosy east. I then turned to the tree and realized that though I stood between the rising sun and the tree, no shadow darkened the trunk. A chorus of howling wolves saluted the dawn. As the sun rose higher and illuminated the landscape, I saw the wolves sitting on their haunches, singly and in groups. I then saw not only the broken and worn headstones immediately around me, but also the summits of irregular mounds and broken stones that extended all the way to the horizon as far as my eyes could see. And then I realized that these were the ruins of the ancient and famous city of Carcosa. Such are the facts imparted to a medium by the spirit Hoseb Alar Robardin. And that concludes Ambrose Bierce's 1886 story, An Inhabitant of Carcosa. As promised, the bonus features follow. The foregoing story reminds me of two poems with the same name, from 1818, that were the result of a friendly contest between two British poets, Percy Bysshe Shelley and Horace Smith. Shelley's poem, Ozymandius, reads as follows. I met a traveler from an antique land, who said two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandius, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Horace Smith's poem, Ozymandias, reads as follows. In Egypt's sandy silence, all alone, stands a gigantic leg which far off throws the only shadow that the desert knows. I am great Ozymandias, saith the stone. The King of Kings this mighty city shows the wonders of my hand. The city's gone, naught but the leg remaining to disclose the site of this forgotten Babylon. We wonder, and some hunter may express wonder like ours, when through the wilderness where London stood, holding the wolf in chase, he meets some fragment huge, and stops to guess what powerful but unrecorded race once dwelt in that annihilated place. Accordingly, Bierce's story, An Inhabitant of Carcosa, and the two Ozymandias poems seem to support the same basic proposition, namely, that time makes fools of us all. This is John T. Rhapsodies, Esquire, purveyor of awesome old-school audio stories. Thank you for listening. You can hear more stories like this in the channel's playlists. Find them by staying tuned for the last 20 seconds of this video and clicking on the end screen icons. You can also go to the channel homepage and click on the playlist tab. If you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more, please help me earn the warm embrace of Mr. and Mrs. YouTubes who look with loving favor upon those channels whose listeners faithfully download the YouTube app, subscribe to this channel, like, comment, click the notification bell, and share the videos with their friends so that they too can hear the words of old.